but remembers only, man. Jesus, for me, because I had a bigger budget, and also I worked with like Allison Moyer and Grover Washington Jr., like my heroes, you know.
Alison Moyer. I did a review of Upstairs at Eric's the other day, which is just that is a freaking gateway drug, man. Just all the synth pop, and
Unbelievable.
and that was so mind blowing back in the day. It was like, whoa! Like I said in review, it's like here's the future. Here it is. It's like
Exactly. Yeah.
wham! I was sitting in my basement, like this is like nothing else I'd ever heard, you know. So
Absolutely. And Depeche, you know, anything Vince Clark actually was part of, like.
yeah,
But the thing about Yaz, or Yazoo over in England, was because, you know, Allison's voice was such, you never heard that type of voice over electronics. I mean, Donna Summers, yeah, but she was more breathy. It wasn't
yeah. What's
like
androgynous too? That's what's so great about Allison as well.
exactly. And
Right?
you know, I flew her to Philly to record, and that song actually is on one of her albums, like her greatest hits vibes.
Hmm.
But yo, man, first of all, she's hilarious. I mean, she should be a comedian. Second of all, the way she sings, like she sings sitting down, so she was on a stool, hunched over, and singing, which I've never seen, but she's getting that deep tone from
Yeah,
down there. Man, we were just like, holy I mean, it was like literally two takes.
yeah. Oh, it's
She,
apparently oh god, what's the first one she did with Vince? Oh god, I'm
you went
blanking.
upstairs? What do you,
Only you, only you.
oh, the song. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Only
apparently
use.
that they did in two takes. He had this little Ampex deck. She showed up, just sat in the chair, like like you're saying, just laid it out, and just went and thought she'd never hear back from him. He calls a week later, says we got a record deal, like the whole deal, right? So
And that
yeah,
was with Mute, right? That was with
yeah, that's right, that's
Daniel.
right.
That was uh Daniel, what's his name?
Oh, it's somewhere in
Owner
my
of
head.
Mute. Yeah, yeah,
But anyway, yeah, that's an amazing story. And they weren't even a band. He remembered her, I think, from school. He knew
yeah.
she could sing, and he needed a singer because he had this demo because he sort of exploded out of Depeche Mode, right? And
Right.
then and she answers an ad. Oh no, he answered her ad because she was trying to put together like an R&B, like a commitments kind of a thing, right? And he said, no, no, do this instead. So
Amazing, man.
it was a wild story, but
Fucking Yaz, man. You know what? A record that if I was doing what you do, which is really great, actually, by the way.
thank you. That's very kind of you to say.
Um, I love these type of thing. You know, when people talk about records that change their life and all. One for me was Cupid and Psych '85, Scritti Politti, man.
Yeah,
Oh my god, that really made it. I was like, man, I really want to learn the sequence. That was the gateway for me as a producer. Like, even though I had Moogs, and I actually had a Depeche Mode cover band called Black Celebration. It was this is high school, but my Moog, mini Moog was like, you know, I saved up for the summer to get it, and it was great. But I wasn't thinking, oh, I'm gonna be this musician. But when I heard Cupid and Psych '85, and I asked my friend, I'm like, how are they getting everything is so locked tight? Like, it's insane. It was actually Jamaluddin Takuma, bass
yeah.
that he was the one that told me the secrets, and I was like, oh man, I'm starting. He's like, get this sequencer, blah, blah, and it was over.
Yeah,
Like that
yeah.
was it. Man.
He's a great player with a great beard
Oh my
too, I should say.
bro. Oh yeah, yeah, of course. And his clothes, man. See,
Yeah.
we used to work in the mall,
Oh yeah.
so he worked at Chameleon upstairs, in between working with Ornette Coleman,
Oh
and then
wow. Are you
the guy,
serious?
yeah, yeah. You
Oh
know,
man.
he was in Ornette's band.
Yeah.
Actually, if you have the Criterion channel, there's a whole documentary on Ornette Coleman. It's called Made in America. It's famous from back in the day.
Hmm.
Jamal's in it. It's incredible. You have to see it,
Yeah.
actually.
He's a one of a kind. That guy, eh?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I haven't, you know, I got to reach out. I haven't talked to him in a minute. We went to Morocco a couple years ago for a big performance. He's like, I want you to do electronics. I'm like, okay, let's go. It was incredible, man. It was like, that's how Jamal is. He's just like, he'll call you like 2 weeks before. Yo, let's go to Morocco. I'm like, okay.
The story that I cobbled together is basically this: that you grew up in Philly, right? Your parents very musical. Dad had a barbershop. You began sort of DJing in his store in his barbershop early on.
Playing records. Yeah, I wouldn't really call it DJing. I mean, it's a form of DJing, but more selecting records to kind of keep the peace and
Yeah,
or keep everyone happy because people come in with troubles and they may feel they might be fighting with their wives or their partners and they come in, they want to release or politics, of course at that time Rizzo was the mayor and it was just
oh, that's brutal.
being black in Philadelphia was just like, especially a black male,
Hmm.
was just like, if you were young, it was like cops were always stopping you. It was just crazy time. So all kinds of energy would come in, and so what are you gonna play to keep everyone happy? Michael Jackson.
Yeah, and your dad's like almost he's a barber, but he's a therapist too, I guess, for some of these guys coming in with all the stuff that's going on.
Ah, yeah, interesting. Yeah, absolutely. Because me myself, like, soon as I moved to San Diego, first thing I looked for was what barbershop is the one.
Yeah,
And then I found it. It takes me about 15 minutes to get there, but it's therapy, man. It's not even about really getting, I don't even have that much hair, but,
yeah.
I just go
Oh, I hear
because,
you.
but
Yeah,
I go because of the community,
yeah.
the importance of community. And he grew up in Florida, right?
Okay.
My dad. In Campbellton, Florida, right? Small. And James Brown, when touring in the 50s, he was doing a Chitlin circuit
Yeah.
and he played my dad's high school
Oh wow.
and it changed his life.
Oh, I
So
bet
my
it
dad
would.
is a huge James Brown aficionado, collecting. He used to collect all the vinyl, reel to reel, like live shows,
It
all
was
that.
like King Records, right? That was the original.
Oh yeah, I have
Yeah.
all his. My dad gave me all of the 45s mint, the
Nice.
King 45s. My friends are just so
Oh,
pissed. So he was deep into the funk from that point, and then of course Motown, huge. Philly, of course, came. That was just natural. Everyone in Philly, everyone who's black,
yeah.
especially.
It was an explosion.
Oh, it was insane. Gamble and Huff changed the game,
Yeah.
and to hear the strings but my dad was deep in it way before Philly sound,
Yeah. But your mom was more kind of more uh
jazz
full,
and
full on
avant.
full on jazz. Like and what kind of eras was she into?
So she was, as far as vocalists, Nancy Wilson. My mom's on the album. She's on When the Funk Hits the Fan.
She
That's
talked
her.
about Billie Holiday, right? Yeah.
Exactly. So that's her explaining to you
Yeah. Yeah.
what she likes, but also she loves the avant-garde. So she was friends with Sun Ra, and so I
Oh,
used to go to Sun Ra's house in rehearsals with her. And funny enough, I have a class called Blacktronica, Afrofuturism and Electronic Music, where we pay tribute to the heroes of color, the pioneers of color that have changed electronic music. And so I had Marshall Allen in to talk about Sun Ra, and the Sun Ra Orchestra, and he remembered, and it was just great. So I grew up in Southwest Philly. Sun Ra lived in Germantown, completely opposite end of Philly. But my mom would take me to shows, like when Sun Ra would be playing around, or once in a while to rehearsals.
and how did they get to know each other? How did they become
I have
friends?
no idea.
There you
I think
go.
it was just at a show. My mom is just that super social.
Yeah.
How she met my dad was at the USO club in Fort Dix. So she was a hostess there, and at night, in the day she worked for a doctor. She was a nurse.
And
So she was social and loved to talk, So she probably just walked up to him and
Yeah. And
talked.
Sun Ra's house was a trip, apparently, his whole
Oh,
scene.
it still is, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, we just went to a lot of shows, and she didn't believe in babysitters, and so it was different at that time. Like because I'm with her, she could take me into a club. It wasn't like a big deal then. Now, of course, it's crazy, but back then it was real loose.
Can you tell me about the decisions they made about your schooling and how you ended up going to the high school you went to?
Right. So, well, first, I grew up Southwest Philly, so it was more of an underrepresented community. Still a great childhood. I mean, I love my neighborhood, but in the scheme of education around the city, we didn't have the best schools. So my mom's like, "Nah, you're going to school downtown." So I went to grade school at Greenfield School,
Mhm.
right? And that was my first exposure to music kind of outside of R&B and jazz. So I got more into rock, because we had a music appreciation class with Mr. Fell, 6th grade. And that's when I explored other cultural sounds. And then I went to high school from Greenfield, which was a great school, and I had great grades. And then I went to Central High School,
Mhm.
and that was in Alney, right? The Alney area of Philly, closer to Germantown.
Mhm.
And that was like, high school. It was the greatest, man. Like
Yeah. I,
people from all over. Everyone's super intelligent. We're all trading music all day, all the time. And that's our life. Like we go to work if we worked. We go to school, we go to work, we go to shows. We go to school, we go to work, we go to shows. Like Live
you-
Aid, everything.
and
Like,
your musical tastes are just
ah,
expanding
bro,
at this point.
bro. I spent all my money on either clothes or going to concerts.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So tell me about like getting into sort of tape loops and sampling and the whole emergence of hip hop and the DJs and Jazzy Jeff and all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, so I grew up, in right in the heart of this in Philly. As you know, it's all started in New York with Cool Herc and everything, but it trickled down, of course, to Philly. I mean, it's right there, and Philly, the early years, tapes would trickle down from New York, like with this sound. Um, but I don't know the ins and outs of who had the first tapes and all of this. But one thing I do remember is seeing my friend Jazzy Jeff playing block parties,
Mhm.
seeing Cash Money, who was incredible DJ, you probably know his name, spinning and DJing these parties. Jazzy Jeff did our high school parties, some of them at Central High School, but he went to Overbrooks. He did a lot of other parties.
Mhm.
But the YMCA in West Philly, that was like a big place to go see a lot of DJs. Grand Wizard Rashim, Tat Money, like they're, all these Philly hip hop DJs.
Mhm.
And so seeing them play, I'm like, wow, this is great. But I never thought I would be a DJ at all. I just admired it and I collected vinyl. So I made tapes and stuff, but I didn't do it like they did it. I was just kind of mixing more because I was more into, say, disco and house, moving into house, early iterations of house at this point. So we're
Mhm.
talking mid 80s, late 80s. And I was making blends. We called it blends. So you're mixing two records for a long time to
Mhm.
create a whole new sound. I'm not really scratching and doing all of that. I'm more into blending. And then as far as tapes, a lot of us couldn't afford samplers, and so we're making tape loops of, you'll get the break and then you just pause it and you rewind it,
So
you know.
and are you performing at this point, or are you just kind of experimenting?
So I'm experimenting until 1988, and I'm working at Tower Records, but I'm the 12-inch buyer, so I'm buying all the vinyl from all over the world. But I'm also DJing at a place called Revival in Philly
Hmm.
with Bobby Startup of all people. He discovered the Stray Cats and all, you know. So I'm learning. Dude, his knowledge is, oh my, is just insane. And I had this like obsession with the UK. You know, I don't know. I just was obsessed with everything coming out of there ever since high school. You know, and there was a show called Rock Over London in Philly that it was simulcast
Hmm.
from over there, and also John Peel.
Yeah.
So I used to listen to Peel's show, and that's where I, learned about the Smiths and the Cure.
Yeah.
Just all the groups that I loved, and also more underground groups as well. Section 25, like all the stuff out of Manchester,
Hmm.
Factory Records.
I lived in the UK, 87, 88, thereabouts.
Oh, oh, dude, you said this in the interview, I think.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I lived there at the time. Yeah, so I was
Dude,
going.
you were oh my, that was the years, man. That was like,
Yeah,
oh my God,
yeah. It
dude.
was. It was. No, unfortunately, I was so immersed in like the studies I was doing at the time that I did not get out. I mean, it's what if you could have a redo and you could do things a little bit differently. I would have done a lot. I would have gone to a lot more
Damn.
house stuff and so
And
on.
what I was gonna say, you were there at Summer of Love, which is '88.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, the Acid House. Oh my,
All yeah, all that stuff was happening then, right? And
man.
it was just so vibrant, right? Just
What's
just new, just hear about new stuff all the time. So
What's funny because I tried to move there because I worked at Tower, Philadelphia, South Street,
yeah,
and then I went to England for the first time. And I met with Digo from Four Hero. Like I met the Four Hero guys, Future Sound in London, people I would talk to on the phone who
right.
were just now putting out records.
You had contacts through your record buying.
All my contacts were
Okay.
from record buying. And then when I started to travel later, I started calling, hey, I'm in town. I'm in London. Da da da.
Yeah,
So when I went to London, I applied. I wanted to transfer from Philly to London Tower. But, you have to be bringing something super unique to that tower that they can't get in the UK. And I didn't really have that yet. And so I didn't, they were like, no, just, stay in Philly, whatever. But I would, of course, go to UK all the time.
so you're in Philly. You're DJing at Silk City, which is a kind of
Oh,
the gig
so
you had.
so I was at Revival.
Yep.
Revival's incredible. After hours. So there's only two or three after hours at the time in Philly. Black Banana, which was great. That's where Josh Wink played.
Yeah.
I'm at Revival, which is another great one. More alternative music at Revival.
Yeah.
Flash, all of that. And then you had your, I think, one or two gay centric, gay focused clubs,
Right.
right? LGBT and Q clubs. And I think it was Two B's, and there was another one. But that's where I would go hear like house music I never heard any other club. And I'm taking notes, and it's great, man. It's such a beautiful community in Philly, that community. So Silk City was, when was that? 90. And so Joey and one of the owners is Joey, but I'm trying to think of the other.
And it's like a restaurant, right? Where you were
Okay,
DJing.
so no, so you had this diner, 24 hours, and next to it was this bar, or it was it's a club now, but you could say it was a bar. It holds 100 people, right? Barely. And there was a door that connected both. So you had this flow of people like all the time. Very New York. Very New York. Oh, Paul. So it was Joey and Paul. Paul McDevitt. He went on to open Beauty Bar, a place called Beauty Bar all around the country, right? And so Joey's from New York. Paul is from, I think Paul is from Boston. But regardless, they were in Philly. They opened Silk City. They had asked Josh Wink, they said, Josh, because they used to go to Banana, would you be into spinning at Silk City? Josh is like, no, I don't have time, but you should ask King, because we were roommates at the time. So they said, yo, come in. And dude, it was like perfect. You know, it took about 6 months to kind of get it really going because it was in an area. Now this area is huge, right? But back then it was like you don't go to this area
Right.
just because it's a warehouses. It was like super desolate, but it's very New York.
Yeah, yeah.
It's very Lower East Side, like
Parts of Brooklyn like that now, right?
absolutely,
Like if you go
absolutely.
record shopping in New York, you're going to places in Brooklyn around there. You're going into
Yes,
basements and stuff. Yeah, yeah,
absolutely. Same similar vibe.
yeah.
But yet totally like there's no one kind of living in an area and all of this. And there was one girl who was opening Betsy Johnson in Philly, and Betsy was in town. She brought her to Silk City because Betsy wanted like a New York vibe, and that was it. All the girls, as soon as the girls came, the word got out. The music was good, and then everyone started coming. So,
So that whole kind of social crowd then sort of
oh my
moved
God,
in, right?
it
Okay.
exploded, bro. Like it was so big. So Saturdays was everything. Like we played house, techno, everything. And Questlove was one of the DJs a little bit later, about '94,
Mhm.
who joined us as he was just learning the DJ and everything. So we were showing him everything. Questlove from the Roots,
Mhm.
and so But anyway, when Silk started, it was Saturdays, and it got so big that we started Mondays. So Mondays, what made it different? We had a whole live band, and this is where Silk 130 comes in. We had the whole live band, and then the DJs. And so at that time, it was new. DJs with bands, we're keeping the dance floor going, but then we would drop out, and then the band would keep the groove and improvise. And so, in the band, we had Chuck Treese, James Poyser, who's now in the Roots, Dre and Vidal, who went on to work with Usher, Norman Jeff Bradshaw, famous trombonist who's on
Yeah.
Silk 30.
Well, this is something I didn't get right the first time because I didn't understand that this was a real band that had been playing for a while. I thought this was kind of more
Well, no,
pulled together
it
as kind of an
is.
ensemble for the record.
It is. It is. So the band had many iterations constantly. So the drummers would change. It was Larry for 2 months. It was Chuck for 2 months. Dre and Vidal. It was we wanted to keep it fresh. Me and Dazia, who was my music partner in Back to Basics, that was the name of the party at Silk City. And so we would change musicians all the time to give everyone a chance. But then at one point there was like the band. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Like
yeah,
that's the band.
yeah,
In the interim, while all of this is happening, we're hearing these voices like these two girls are just singing, no microphone or anything, over all the music. And this happened more on Saturdays. And there's wailing, beautiful voices over the music. And that was TNA on the Rocks, which was Tanja Dixon and
right,
Lady Alma Horton, who's
yeah,
famous house singer now.
yeah.
And I'm like, I gotta get these women on this album, you know, the whole thing. Now you got to keep in mind, I had just come off tour with Diggable Planets.
Yep.
So Diggable happened '91, and then toured for 3 years. When I met Ish, he needed to make some copies of the demo.
Okay, so you didn't actually work in the demo.
No, but I toured 3 years with them,
Yeah.
and we toured with Sade as well. So I was in the band. I was the DJ for the band. while I was on tour, I'm writing the album When the Funk Hits the Fan. So writing it as in collecting loops. Your favorite loop, the Lloyd McNeil quartet with the ooh, 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 ooh,
Oh,
ooh, ooh.
I love that. I love that, man.
I have a story about that
Okay, so that's a sample, is it?
sample. Yeah,
Okay,
I'll tell you the story
yeah.
behind that. So Silk One. I'm writing the whole thing on Diggable. Then I left Diggable Planets in '95 after the Sade tour. We toured with Sade, and then I'm like, I'm diving in. I'm writing this album, and it's day in the life of. It was basically an autobiography, emotion picture, and then from there, I linked up with John Wicks, who I produced electronic music and whatever, but I had never really worked with live musicians to this extent. And so John Wicks, that's his
The
expertise.
booth, the sliders, all that stuff. That was
Yeah.
what he
So we
did.
combined
Yeah.
forces at Third Story Recording Studio, which he owned, and which now, funny enough, 25 years later, 30 years, now Ursula Rucker's nephew lives there. And it's just wild, man. It's like it's just crazy.
So it's
That's a
it
whole
was
other
just it's now a condo or a condo.
No, 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 no. It's still a
Studio.
studio,
Okay,
but they have lofts, and it's more of a how can I say it? It's a community center
right.
with a studio in it for the community, which I'm going to um, donate some of my instruments and stuff to them
Nice.
when I move the studio out here. Anyway, that's a whole other story. So we got the band. The band is, I mean, it's so many people in and out, but Pete Rudd, he was one of the drummers. Darryl Burgess from
Okay.
Philly played on a lot of jazz records and stuff. He's also a great percussionist. He's actually more known as a percussionist. So
Okay.
I had Pete Rudd, Darryl Burgess. Um,
Rudd was the guy who worked with Gamble and Huff, right? He for Phil.
yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
he would drum on there. He was
Totally.
a session guy for them.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
totally. That's him. Yeah. And
Okay.
then a lot of people don't know that. His four to the floor is just insane.
Well, you had to be to work
Yeah,
in that
exactly.
factory, right? I think
Right.
so.
And then Chuck Treese as well on drums and bass. Certain songs, every song has different people. Mark Boyce was on keys. Poyser, of course, James Poyser's on keys. But Jamaladdin Takuma's on most of the bass parts. Jafar Barron on trumpet. Also Stan Slaughter on trumpet, who's incredible.
Is it Jamal on Jimmy Lean's back?
Oh yeah, oh
Yeah,
yeah, oh
I
yeah.
love that. That's maybe my favorite track
That's the track,
on the
man.
whole.
That's my dad.
Yeah,
When he says get in the car, like that's my dad. Because
yeah,
we would be going to the barber shop. He's like, I gotta get to the shop. I'm like, late. You know what I mean? I had to put all of that in there, like my
yeah,
whole childhood.
yeah.
And yeah, Jamal killed. Phew.
Can you help me with who's singing on the different tracks? Because I
Absolutely, yeah.
think I got most of it, but
Yeah,
some.
you got it right. So Allison Crockett was on. Oh, I don't have the track list in front of me.
Well,
Oh,
yes, I think so.
Season Change is her biggest
She
one.
sings, yeah, getting into it,
Oh yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Which that's the one with the Barcade sample too, right? I think in there.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
And she's also on what is she?
Seasons Change.
Yes, yeah, seasons
Get
change.
up, get on
And
down.
gorgeous also, I think she's
No, that's Vicky Miles. Vicky Miles, yeah.
okay. I get
She killed that one. Yeah. I
yeah,
knew Vicky from Greenfield, from grade school. Or yeah, like
really.
before high school. It's funny.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Seasons change and getting into it. So it's just the is it just the two tracks she's on then, or is she?
Oh, and get up to get on down.
Oh, is that Uptown? Yeah, that's
Yeah,
Uptown.
Uptown, yeah.
Okay, right.
I
Yeah,
don't have it in front of me. It's such a blur sometimes.
yeah. Well, no, look, I mean, if you put down as many things on wax as you have, right? So, and then for when the funk swings, that's Tanya and Alma singing on.
Exactly. TNA. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, right, okay, and
And last night a DJ.
that's right. Yeah, okay, so the last side, two dance tracks at the end, right? The last night of DJ, and that's them. But also when the funk hits the fan, that's them as well, is
Oh,
it?
yes, yes, of course.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Did you cut those about the same time with the same band, those two tracks, or different times?
All the same day.
Oh, one day. Wow.
not not just when the funk hits the fan, when the funk swings,
Yep.
and um, last night DJ, all the same day. Those three.
Yep.
But it only took the album. It took us 3 days to record. So I had all the pre-production done. So the whole album is a combination of samples and live.
Yeah.
And so, dude, I had it mapped out so specific, and of course with the help of John Wicks. So I knew, okay, I want this I want Jamal on this, I want Chuck on this, because I knew who played how they played
Yeah.
from Silk City. I'm like, I want that style of drumming on this track, and blah blah blah.
And so some of those tracks, they had been playing, rehearsing these tracks already at these live shows, or
No, no,
were these fresh in the studio?
fresh. No, they had no idea going in.
That's amazing.
But the thing is, the way we did it at Silk City, say I was playing, let's say I was playing the James Brown funky drum. So I'm cutting the James Brown on vinyl. The band is playing with it. Then I drop the vinyl out.
Hmm.
Okay, band's playing, and then I mix something else in. So this was kind of like this was a woodshed kind of rehearsal vibe, but it wasn't the songs that I presented to them.
Yeah.
So the day of, just say it was last night DJ. Well, that's a cover, so that's kind of cheating because everyone knows that, right? But when the funk hits the fan, they never heard it before. Here's the charo, so that sample, the dun, 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 dun. I took just that little clavinet and redid it from charo,
Love that clavinet. Love that.
right?
I think I said on the review that that is like a clavinet's like a time machine. Yeah.
Totally,
Just
absolutely.
boom. Oh, it's 1973. There's Stevie, right? It's just all over. Love that.
And
But
so, I had the tracks all laid out
mhm,
just like it would be a record, but just using samples, and I would play it, and they're already used to jamming, okay, with whatever I'm dropping. And so they're jamming with it, and then that's it. And then when I mix it with John, I replace the samples with, or, sample, say if I program the bass line or whatever, with Jamal Dean. I mean,
yeah,
it's Jamal Dean, but the ideas were coming from both Jamal Dean and my kind of, what would you call it, foundation. But then, of course, they're live musicians. They're going to add their flavor and,
yeah.
improvise over that. So it was a beautiful experience.
Can you tell me about Capital A?
Oh man, Cap, man. So I just talked to him the other day. He lives in San Francisco now. He, lived in Philly. Used to come to Silk every week. Incredible MC. Such a great producer on his own.
Hmm.
But as an MC, I had these demos before we went in the studio, and one of them was the Sylvia Striplin sample that Roy Ayers did. The can't You would know it from Biggie Small, like Biggie Smalls made it big,
Right,
right?
right, right.
But I did it before Biggie, right? With Capital A, and I had the demo. And then one day, we're outside of Silk City, and this car is blasting the Biggie with the same sample. I'm like, fuck. And so I had to replace that sample, which became City,
Right,
which I used Tony Scott.
right, right. Well, on this album here,
Yeah,
yeah, okay, got it.
yeah.
Another person I wanted to ask you about was is who seems like a total force of nature is Ursula Rucker.
Bro, come on, man. That's my sister, bro. Like, we talk almost every day. Like, her son is the one who's now living in Third Story. Like, well, it's not called Third Story anymore, but the
Her,
same
her
building.
performances are so powerful on that record.
Dude, well, you know her from the Roots too, right? Like
Yeah, well,
the
but not as
first,
well. But yeah, for sure. Yeah.
exactly. So me and Urs go back to ninth grade. Like Vicky Miles, that's Vicky Miles' cousin too. But Vicky Miles went to girls' high. So Central High used to be all boys,
Hmm.
but then when I joined, it was the first year that it got integrated, right? Boys and girls. But then you still had girls' high, which was all girls, like literally up the street. So everyone would, all the boys would be out front, see all the girls come out. And Vicky would come out to meet Ursula because Ursula went to private school. And so, I kind of met Urs that way, but I really met Ursula when she dated my good friend Dazia, who I did Silk City with. And
Hmm.
I grew up with Dazia, right?
Right.
And so they were dating for like 6 years. So me and Urs were really tight. Now, if you remember pre cell phone, we would always, if you need to get information, you call the operator,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. Because how old are you?
I was born in '65.
Yeah. So yeah.
I know. I know.
You look young though. You
I
look
know the. I know. Thank you. I know the 411.
that's the point.
There you go.
And so I would call to get, whatever. And then it'd be like, Ursula. Ursula worked for Bell Telephone.
Hmm.
I got her twice, dude. I was like, damn, her voice is just perfect. And so we had done, before Silk 130, we did a huge dance track called Supernatural. You can look it up.
Yeah.
Huge. It's to this day, people are still sampling it. Supernatural by Firefly featuring Ursula Rucker. Huge, like massive track. We still get checks from them. And then when this came up, Silk 130, I'm like, oh, I got to get Ursula, especially on the women's lib track. I want ERA because my mom was, a big activist. And I felt that was a tribute to her.
Hmm.
Who better than Urs?
But whose lyrics are those? Those are Ursula's lyrics or your
Yeah,
lyrics?
yeah. Urs
Yeah.
writes all. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
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 She wrote all her own. I wrote everything else, but when the last night a DJ because that's a cover
Yeah,
song.
of course. Yeah. Yeah.
But everything else I wrote. Yeah.
Uh, a couple other questions come to mind. First of all, it's always struck me as interesting that the reprise of "When the Funk Hits a Fan" actually happens earlier in the record than the actual hit itself.
Totally. Yeah, yeah,
Why,
yeah,
why did
yeah.
you do that?
It was more of a sequencing thing. I wanted to kind of, and also it was like a memory of if you listen to there's my dad echoed in the back. There's like all these things that I was dreaming about when I was on the trolley. You hear those little things in the back, and then it goes into the track. So it was more of I wanted to break the album up. I didn't want like hype all the way through the album.
Yeah, it's a nice down tempo piece, right? I guess. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing I've always loved about the record is the Boz Scaggs sample.
Dude.
Uh,
So let
and,
me
and
tell you
it's
how that
funny
happened.
because there's a review out there. It might be All Music or something, which is actually kind of rude about that and says, "Oh, I don't know, this is like derivative or whatever." I'm like, this is I don't know. I just love that snappy sound, and it works so well with what you layered over top. I think anyway. But
Thank you, man. Well, let me tell you. So how it happened. So there's an original version of The Reason. You can see it. It's on Spotify. Here, let me put it in the chat. That's the version that was going to be on the album. And then I had a gig. I had to go overseas or something. I come back. John Wicks, for fun, put Boss because he had been listening to Boss Skaggs or whatever with his wife. He's like, "Oh, let me just put this with The Reason," and I was like, "Holy shit, this is insane!" So
yeah,
it was John Wicks that did that mix, and then I added a few things, but it was John Wicks that did that, and then we did a version with Bahamadia rapping over it, which was the 12-inch version. So there's a 12-inch. If you find the vinyl and it has Bahamadia on it, oh man, the way we flipped the sample too is really cool for her part.
Hmm.
But I'm like, well, how am I going to clear this, right? But I was on Sony. I was on Sony. So was Boz. So I hit the A&R at the time. I forget who it was. And I said, yo, I need to clear this Boz Skaggs. They're like, oh, okay, we'll contact, because it was Sony. Dude, they cleared it, no problem. He's got his publishing. I got mine. Like, it was, yeah, it was like a dream come true. And then I said, okay, I'm gonna put the original on like the 12-inch,
Hmm.
and now I put it on. What happened was, which it's kind of like different versions on that record because I didn't want to re-release the record yet,
Yeah,
but I wanted kind of like something out there, with Silk 130
yeah.
on Spotify. So that's what it was.
And what's next for you?
Oh, dude, like I mean, you know, teaching, of course, but I just did an album with Tyshawn Sorey,
Hmm.
insane drummer, but he's also a classical composer too. He's unbelievable, dude. But this record we did, it's all synth and all drums, like synth and drums.
Hmm.
It's like Herbie. You know what it's like? Mwandishi. If you know
Yeah,
Herbie's
yeah, I do.
Mwandishi,
Yeah, you
yeah,
see what?
it's on that vibe, man.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
Herbie's catalog from start to finish in the '70s
bro,
is amazing.
bro,
Yeah,
bro.
you have Manchild on here on this
Yeah,
record too.
yes.
Yeah, which I do.
Oh, the story for right. I know, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, no, no. I'm talking.
It just reminded me of the Lloyd McNeil quartet sample. Ooh, 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 ooh.
Yeah,
So Lloyd McNeil did an album on Ashra, the Ashra label, which is a big jazz label, or not big, but underground jazz label.
yeah,
And it was for a dance piece, choreography piece, right? And so I didn't think I'm like, no one's gonna know this record, whatever, whatever. So it's literally like it's a pretty big chunk, and then I added the jazz stuff over and all. But it just worked so well with Alice. And so my lawyer at the time was like, "You need to put some money aside just in case, whatever." And then put an ad in Variety magazine, if you remember,
yeah, yeah,
just looking for where Lloyd McNeil is. We couldn't find him. There was no publishing info on it.
yeah.
2 years later, I get this like cease and desist from Lloyd McNeil, and then we were like, "Yo, we got this money for you. Here's the ad we put out." Come to find out, he teaches at Rutgers.
No way.
Yeah, so this is like '98, and we found out he was teaching at Rutgers, and so then he wanted to collaborate, but we just never made it happen.
Yeah,
But maybe, hey, maybe in the future. But it was just a funny. So anything that I re-release,
yeah.
it'll have his sample credit, and
Right
yeah.
on, right on.
I
Okay,
think
look,
I think I put his name in the sample.
I'll go back and have a
Look
look.
on. I think I put it in there
Yeah,
just because out of respect.
kind of rings a bell.
Yeah.
Anyway, respect for your time. Thank you
Yeah.
so
Thank
much for spending
Yes.
this time with me, and this has been a real pleasure. Thank you so much for
Thanks,
spending time.
man. Respect. So much respect, man.
You take
Thank
care.
you.
Bye
All
bye.
right. Peace. Bye.